Welcome back to Dynamics. Okay, so I am going to do a movie review for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. So, a couple of things. One, it's going to be a very positive review for the most part. One, as you know, not super critical when I critique movies. I'm more of the I enjoy watching movies, and so more than likely I'll be able to find the positives when I watch a movie. But I do want to try to point out some negatives too. Um, but overall, positive review. My experience, however, not so much, because I am a duntana. So I have the Regal app, and so movies that I go to are basically unlimited, so I don't have to pay for my tickets. But I was going to go see it with my girlfriend and another friend of ours, and so I got 3 tickets, and I got them for Friday. We planned to see the movie Saturday. I did not realize I got the tickets for Friday. And so I show up Saturday with my friend and my girlfriend, and we don't have tickets to the movie. Surprisingly, so this kind of plays into things. Surprisingly, in my area at least, the theaters were selling out. So I'm actually kind of surprised with the numbers that I'm hearing that it wasn't a huge success financially. It was pretty good, but not a huge success because usually when I hear that, I can see it in the theaters. Like I go to a theater, it's mostly empty, or if it's during peak time, then maybe half full. These theaters were sold out. Um, and so the theaters in my area have mostly stadium seating, and the theater I like to go to has the reclining seats. So it's bigger. I'm a big guy. I like my spacious seat, and so so there are less seats in the theater. So I guess take that into account. But basically, there's a lot of space in between rows because you can kick back in your recliner seat. Um, but to kind of compensate for that, the theaters have put this extra row at the front, which I didn't realize was an extra row. And so I'm looking at tickets. My friend and my girlfriend and I are sitting there trying to figure out if we're going to go see this movie. And I'm looking at the seats, and that whole front row is empty. And I'm like, I mean, it can't be that bad. We can kick back and recline and watch the movie, right? No, these theaters should not have that extra front row. Just get rid of it. It's almost always empty. It's for a good reason because you'll get some dummy like me sitting there and being all like, "Yep, never doing that again." Sitting in the front row in those recliner theaters it's not good. So that has no impact on the movie itself, but on my overall experience, it wasn't the greatest. I've had better experiences. Usually, I sit up in the very back too, and so I'm the complete opposite. I like to sit in the very back of a theater, and I was in the very front, and it just wasn't an enjoyable experience. Got a little dizzy at times because you're all up close and you're looking up, and everything's kind of like out of whack as far as like shaping, and you have to look left to right because the whole screen is more than your field of vision. So it wasn't as great. I want to see it again, but I wanted to get this movie review out there. But I do think I plan on seeing it one more time in the theaters just to kind of get a better experience. Anyways, on to the movie review. So I enjoyed it. I actually enjoyed it more than I thought I was going to. I enjoy the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. I like comedy in my comic book movies. I know a lot of people like them to be more serious, and I get that. So when Blade comes around and we get the Midnight Suns, I'm going to want those to be very serious, very little humor, maybe kind of break the tension a little bit here and there. But for the most part, for the Midnight Suns movies, I'm going to want a dark, serious movie. And I've heard Blade is actually going to be rated R, so that will be great if it ever comes out. um, but this, I wanted there to be a lot of comedy, and there was. It was great, but there was also a lot of emotion. And so I'm torn because I know how good James Gunn is. I do. I really enjoyed his Guardians of the Galaxy movies. I enjoyed Peacemaker. Suicide Squad was but Peacemaker was great, and I've enjoyed the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. I'm not super excited about the direction that he's taking DC though, and so I kind of got a love hate relationship with him as far as his movies go. Not him personally, but as far as his movies go, I'm not super excited about what he's doing with DC. Um, but I look forward to seeing the next season of Peacemaker. So there's that. Um, but he did a good job in this movie. It was well written, well acted, comedy, emotion. He didn't um, use any crutches either, which we'll get to more when I'm into the spoiler section. Um, I felt like everybody kind of kicked it up a notch. Did some good acting. We saw some great range from Chris Pratt. Um, Obviously, some great range from Batista because he's wonderful. Um, Zoe Saldana is kind of more of a smaller part in the movie, but she does well. Carrie Ann Gillan has really kind of like replaced her, replaced Saldana as the main female of the franchise. She's the one of the best characters in the franchise, and so Nebula is just really great. Um, One of the negatives that I have with the movie, though, and I do want to do some negatives, is I'm kind of with everybody as far as like, why did they make her look like that? Nebula was more like, when she first came out, was more not like overly sexualized, but a sexy character. And I know Karen Gillian is a beautiful woman, but they just kind of made her look more frumpy, more like a man. It just, I don't know. It didn't quite work for me the way that she looked, but some of her new power sets were pretty amazing, and that kind of went along with it. So it's the good and the bad, right? Um, I really enjoyed like her arm, the new um, weapon that she has in the arm, and some of the other weapons that she uses throughout the movie. Pretty good stuff. Um, Groot is Groot. I mean, he Vin Diesel is fine. I mean, the character is an interesting character. There's some developments to the character throughout the movie. Vin Diesel is really kind of not necessary, but he is the voice of Groot. So, um, Sean Gunn was fine as Kraglin. He has some shining moments in the movie, so that's great. Dave Batista is amazing. He's just one of my favorites. I'll go see any movie he's in. Will Poulter as Adam Warlock. Will does a fine job in the movie. He looks the part. He he bulked up for the role, um, and for how they wanted him to portray the character, he did fine. Um, how they portrayed the character, and I understand why they did this. They've explained it, but it doesn't make it better. Um, Adam Warlock is a very powerful character, and in the movie, he is very powerful. Um, but they basically were like, you got him out of the cocoon too early, and so he was basically dumb. He was kind of dumb. He plays like as if he's just super inexperienced, and kind of comes across as doofy. Does it kind of work? Sure. Do they kind of explain it? Sure. Hopefully, as we see the character progress, he becomes more substantial, though. I'll just leave it at that. And then who else? Who am I missing? I'm missing Mantis. Mantis was amazing in the movie. Palm Clementieff. I'm not sure if that's how her name is supposed to be pronounced. Palm Clementieff. Was great in the movie. Played off Batista's Drax very well, and has a really really good um, character arc as well. All the characters have really good character arcs. It's a good thing. And then, of course, last but not least is Rocket Raccoon, and Bradley Cooper voicing Rocket Raccoon. Um, no one, no one else could get as much out of the character as he does. Does an amazing job, voicing the character. They do an amazing job of making the character an interesting character. The story arc, everything about him is great. I really, really enjoy his character arc throughout the movie. Very emotional, sad, happy, makes you laugh. Everything, everything. It was great. Um, all right. So who else? Who else do we have? Cosmo the space dog was fun. Lots of fun, or a couple of fun moments from Cosmo, voiced by Maria Bakalova. Bakalova, Russian accent. Cosmo is a Russian dog. Good choice. It worked. All right. Who else? Who else do I want to touch on? Um, Here, let me pull up the actual movie. Okay, so obviously the villain, the High Evolutionary, um, Chakwudi Iwuji, I think is how you pronounce it. I'm slightly off, I think, but Chakwudi Iwuji was great in Peacemaker. Is great in this. I really enjoy his work. I look forward to seeing more from him. Unfortunately, we'll get to spoilers in a little bit. Anyways, the High Evolutionary as a character works but it's inconsistent as far as how powerful he is. That seems to be the problem for me. The negative is sometimes he seems like overpowered, and sometimes he seems like, why can't you handle this? you know. So, anyways, the character had some inconsistencies, but I enjoyed the psychotic nature of the character. Um, Believable, but at the same time, it it just works. All right, let's see. Who else do we got? Who else do we got? Um, there's some side characters with the High Evolutionary, Recorder Vim and Recorder Thel. They're fine. They do a fine job. Miriam Shore and Nico Santos. They do a fine job. Anybody else? No, but for being an ensemble cast, they do a really good job of showcasing everybody a little bit, right? And that's what I enjoy so much. They do a good job of getting in there and saying, you know what, we need to showcase this entire ensemble. So even though technically speaking, um, um, even though technically speaking, Chris Pratt as Peter Quill is the quote unquote main character. There is the main character of this movie is Rocket, right? And which is interesting to say because I'll get to spoilers in a little bit. um, but yeah, I think they do a really good job. Just trying to see if there's anybody else I want to talk about here. Sylvester Stallone makes his appearance again. He's good in the role. Blurp was a funny little side character. All right. I love that there's a character. I noticed it when we were watching the credits too. To get to the post credits, there was a character called Gamora shoots this guy. So that's the character's name, played by Jonathan Mercedes. Gamora shoots this guy. There's the Carrot Head guard. That's funny. Carrot Head's friend. I love the naming convention that they use for some of these. Let's see. All right. Okay. Enough. Enough. All right. So the story. We'll get into some spoilers now. The story is basically Rocket was created by the High Evolutionary. He was an actual raccoon, and when Rocket has that realization that he actually was a raccoon, it's pretty funny to me. They do, it's emotional but funny. He's like, "Oh man, I really was a raccoon," and so, but anyway, so the High Evolutionary um, takes a regular raccoon and turns him into Rocket. Rocket is exceptional as one of his species, but is the early version before he gets to the point where he actually just evolves them genetically. So previously it was more like body horror, like he surgically enhanced them, and then he found a way to actually engineer them genetically. And Rocket helped him figure that out. Rocket showed him where his error was in something that he was doing, which angered the High Evolutionary, but also made him very happy, at the same time, because he's crazy. And so his plan was to remove Rocket's brain so he could study how he was able to figure out what he could not figure out, because everybody else could like memorize and they can learn and they can do this stuff, but Rocket was able to um, think and create and come up with his own ideas basically. And so he wanted to study Rocket's brain to figure out how to make it so that all of his other creations could do something similar. So he tells Rocket that that he's going to do this, and Rocket has some friends in the pen that he's held in, and so he tells them that the High Evolutionary is going to kill them all, that they aren't going to get to go to the new colony, and because the High Evolutionary is trying to start a colony of these creatures that he has created, and we have to escape, and in while they're trying to escape, um, um, his best friend and possibly love interest. They don't get into that so much in the movie, but I know in the comics that she was supposed to be like a love interest. Um, High Evolutionary kills her, and then the guards end up killing his other two friends, and he goes crazy. Well, I mean, he fights off the guards, but realizes that his friends are dead. He goes crazy, claws up High Evolutionary's face, destroys his face, which is why his face looks the way it does through the movie. Basically, it's a mask of his face, which is revealed at the end of the movie, which is kind of gruesome and kind of cool. Scratches up his face and he escapes and he gets away, and so that's Rocket's story. Well, the High Evolutionary still wants to capture Rocket. So throughout Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2, he still wants to capture Rocket. He just doesn't, or I don't know. And apparently, the High Evolutionary is responsible for creating the Sovereign, the Golden People, which kind of leads to one of the what I think is like a story hole, a plot hole, because he's saying Rocket's the first one who could really think for himself and create for himself, but the Sovereign can too, I think, right? That would, it seems like they could. So it kind of really doesn't make a lot of sense there. But anyways, you got to look past some of these things, but definitely a plot hole as far as I'm concerned. Um, so anyways, the High Evolutionary created the Sovereign, and he wants to use Adam Warlock to go and capture Rocket. So he makes them take Adam out of the cocoon before he is ready. So he takes him out of the cocoon, which you don't see. The movie starts after this point. So the movie starts with Adam Warlock shows up at nowhere. Um, the head that they live in, Celestial. It's a Celestial's head. He shows up there and fights through all the Guardians, although they all kind of hold their own, but he ends up taking out Rocket. But he was supposed to capture Rocket and bring him back to the High Evolutionary, but he almost gets killed and escapes. So he escapes without Rocket. So the Guardians have Rocket. And so through about half to three quarters of the movie, Rocket is actually on a ventilator, and they're trying to get something that they're going to use to save his life. Um, and so all the Rocket scenes are him kind of in this on this ventilator and remembering the other stuff that I told you about his friends and how he's created and all that different backstory with the High Evolutionary. So Rocket doesn't actually have a lot of he doesn't he isn't a big part of the movie other than the flashbacks until the very end of the movie, but still great, amazing. Anyways, so Rocket goes and they go to the High Evolutionaries thing. There's a big battle. High Evolutionary destroys the whole colony, which is crazy. A lot of things die. Um, but the big part of the movie that a lot of people thought was going to happen is you think that Drax is going to die, or Gamora is going to die again, or maybe even Peter Quill, maybe, but probably not. Does Nebula die? Does Mantis die? That's what you're waiting for the whole time. Spoiler: no one died. I mean, lots of people died. Lots of people in the colony, lots of people in the High Evolutionaries force that he has there. A lot of people died, but the main Guardians of the Galaxy characters, no one dies. Um, Rocket's friends die in the flashbacks, of course, but all the Guardians of the Galaxy are alive at the end of the movie. They win. They defeat the High Evolutionary, but you don't see his body, so that's good. And that's kind of what I was talking about earlier, a little bit. I hinted at Chakwudi Owuji, his character dies in the first Peacemaker series, and it implies that he dies here in the Guardians of the Galaxy 3. So I don't think we're going to see him anymore, which is unfortunate because he's a great actor, but I don't know where he doesn't really have a role in DC and he doesn't have a role in Marvel. So he'll go on to do other stuff, but we won't see him in these movies, I don't think, anymore. Technically, they could bring the High Evolutionary back. You didn't see his body, but the ship he was on explodes. Oh, Peter Quill almost dies. He gets stuck in space again. This time he's saved by, because in the last one he was saved by his dad, or his, basically adoptive dad, foster dad. Um, um, and in this one, it was actually Adam Warlock that saved him because, they have they save him once, even though he tried to kill him multiple times, and he's like, "Why?" And Drax is like, "Everybody deserves a second chance." And so he is like, "Oh, this is my new family," because his mom dies throughout the movie too. That um, um, the the gold lady. Why am I forgetting the name? I've talked about him a couple times in this video. Anyways, the gold lady is Adam Warlock considers her his mom, and she dies during the movie, and so he doesn't have a family anymore, and so he joins up with the Guardians too, and he saves Peter um, in space and brings him back into the ship, so he doesn't die again. Awesome. Drax doesn't die, although he almost does. He gets shot multiple times, and you think he's gonna die, but he doesn't. Mantis doesn't die. Could have died, didn't. Um, Gamora didn't die. Could have, didn't. Nebula, same thing. And so he didn't kill off any characters, which is kind of cool because they do leave. Like Peter at the end of the movie goes off and goes back to Earth to find his grandpa. Um, Rocket stays with the Guardians of the Galaxy, forms a new Guardians of the Galaxy, and he's the leader of the team along with Adam Warlock, um, um, Cosmo. Um, Marvell is a little girl, but she doesn't play a big part in the movie. She's one of the children that are captured on the High Evolutionary ship or stuck on the High Evolutionary ship that they save. They don't really explain how she has powers at the end, but she's a part of the team and she has powers. Um, Groot is still with him. Groot survived, and Groot is like massive now. Chad Groot, or what they say. There's a point in the movie where he's got Kaiju Groot. So he's still with them, so he's part of the team still. So yeah, so it's Adam Warlock, which kind of replaces the Drax role, the big dumb, strong, powerful guy. Um, you have Rocket, you have Groot, you have Cosmo, Marvel, Kraglin. There we go. That's who I was trying to think of. Kraglin's on the team officially at that point, and that's your team. So they could do another movie. We shall see. And the cool part is, it's Bradley Cooper and um, Vin Diesel would be like the main characters, and like it's all voice stuff. So I don't see any reason why they wouldn't do it again. And then Kraglin is kind of questionable because that's James Gunn's brother, but he's not doing a whole lot. I'm sure he'll still act in James Gunn's movies as like he was the Weasel in the Suicide Squad, so he can do like small parts like that. But I don't. I think if Marvel calls him and says, "Hey, we want Kraglin again," they probably get Kraglin. Cosmo, same thing, is a voice. So Cosmo would be voiced by that new actress, and I'm sure she would do it again. The little girl is the little girl, and Adam Warlock has Will Poulter has just started, so I could see him. So I see this team being a team they could do another movie with. We'll see. We'll see. It won't be a James Gunn movie, but I'd give it a chance. Um, Peter Quill is going to be Star Lord by himself now, and I don't see him getting his own movie, but I could see him, showing up in future crossover movies, helping out the Avengers or whatever. But he may get his own movie. One of the post-credit scenes kind of hints at that. Says the story of the legendary Star Lord will continue or whatever. So I could see them giving him his own movie, but I don't think it would be as good without it being an ensemble movie because his character, while it's a great character, is not overly powerful, which is interesting because his dad was a ego. But I could see him maybe reconnecting with Mantis, and if she wants to do movies in the future. I know Drax, Dave Bautista doesn't want to do any more movies, although I could see him doing a small part in like the final like Secret Wars movie with the big crossover. I could see him coming back and helping out a little bit or making an appearance. But I don't think he wants to do the makeup for a full movie again. Um, Gamora, same thing. Zoe Saldana is not going to come back and do that character again, but she goes off with the Ravengers. She's not going to end up with Peter Quill. It's not the same Gamora. It makes sense. It's definitely developed throughout the movie. She sees in Peter what she what other Gamora saw in him, but also she has her own life to lead. So yeah, she's not going to end up with him, and the actress doesn't want to do any more movies. So same thing as Dave. I could see her maybe doing like a one-off like guest appearance in the Secret Wars movie. Um, yeah, so that's it. So those were the post credit was the New Guardians team and Peter Quill's post credit. So those were the post credits. Overall, I enjoyed the movie. There were some plot holes. There were some negative things as far as how they did the Adam Warlock character and that sort of stuff. But overall, I would say good movie. Definitely should go watch it. I'm probably gonna have to go watch it again myself because I need to go see it, not staring up at the theater and getting dizzy. All right, everybody, take care. Have a good day.